So in preparing for this episode, obviously I have a bunch of Star Wars stuff here beside me. You'd think I was some kind of super fan. But thinking back on this, I was like, when did I first see this movie? And I do not remember when I first seen it.
Is that right?
I knew I seen it as a kid. I didn't see it in the theater though, I remember liking it. I remember eating the C3PO's cereal. I remember cartoons and video games, and I also remember that every year I would watch the Ewoks movie that they would show on, I guess it was ABC every year. Ewoks and Clash of the Titans would come on.
Oh, hopefully not the Ewoks Thanksgiving. Oh, that no,
No,
the
no,
Ewoks
no.
was something different.
Yeah,
Yes,
because you're talking about the Christmas special.
Star Wars
Yeah,
holiday special. Yes.
yeah. These are the Ewoks, but I don't think this. I don't. I remember, like I said, I remember liking it. I don't think it had a really big impact on me until they released the full trilogy on VHS in like '95,
Hmm.
and my friend got it and we watched it, and it just, I guess, that reinvigorated that feeling I had as watching. But I don't remember it being that effective me as a kid. Like I said, I can't remember the first time I seen it,
Well, it was
but
probably.
I do love it.
Well, you're a much younger guy than me,
Yeah,
and so probably in your case, and I think this is true of a lot of folks, uh, this was sort of fed to them almost like Santa Claus or Mickey Mouse. It was part of their environment as they were growing up. So it's not like me. I was there the first weekend when it opened
yeah,
at the Astor Plaza, and I even have I have the program that I purchased on that day. And I was such a fan because it was such a life-changing experience for me that there was nothing else to buy really. I mean, there was the paperback book which I
right.
bought. I went just out of desperation to buy something else that was Star Wars related. I noticed that they had a little thing down at the bottom where you could order more. You know, they say send your quarters,
Yeah.
I'll send you one. So I bought another one. Had it mailed to me. And this one actually is interesting. They did different runs of the program. So this is printed on different paper and it has different
Okay.
colored paper inside. So now I have the original and I have the pink, or
The
I think
pink
they
one.
call it the salmon,
Right.
salmon colored one. But yeah, I remember after Return of the Jedi, there was a period there where the sort of the flame had gone out in the galaxy
Yeah.
of the Star Wars phenomenon, and there were a lot. I was some of my friends were having children, and their children were like 4 or 5 years old, and they didn't know anything about Star Wars. So I was the guy that was sort of introducing this to the kids, and when
To
they
the
saw
kids,
it, of
yeah.
course, they just went crazy. This must have been happening a lot because
Yeah.
suddenly George Lucas got the idea to start making sequels. I guess the toy line was so lucrative that he said, "Well, if we're going to keep the toy line going, we have to have more
More
movies."
movies, yeah.
Uh, but I still remember seeing the first trailer when it ran on television late at night, fairly late at night. I think it was after 11 o'clock. I was watching some horror movie on Channel 9 here in New York, local station, and they ran the trailer, and I was just like, you know, oh my God. It was like Jesus had shown up.
Yeah.
Now here's a word from Jesus. That was my reaction. You know, it was just incredible. And I thought to myself, this is what, me and my brother both would always run off anytime they were running a science fiction movie. We'd run off and we'd always be disappointed,
Yeah.
Like the previous science fiction movie that we went to see before Star Wars was Logan's Run. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Jenny August was the best part of that movie.
that's right. Yes. Well, I mean, those type of movies, they usually coasted on the fact that they had attractive leads or they
Yeah.
had expensive sets and costumes and things like that, but they were shitty. Uh, but going and seeing Star Wars was like a revelation because it was for the first time we were seeing all these things that we wanted to do, what I wanted to do myself in movies, and all the things that we sort of hoped other movies would be like there it was on the screen.
Yeah.
And it was just tremendous. And the fact that there were so many uh, good aspects to it. It wasn't as if you could say, well, the special effects were good, but the
But
acting and
yeah.
the story, everything was
Everything was
uniformly
good, yeah.
yeah. The music, the special effects, the cinematography. I just was reading Gilbert Taylor, the cinematographer of Star Wars. He was also the cinematographer of The Omen and Frenzy, two films that we were fairly recently talking about. but he also did A Hard Day's Night, Dr. Strangelove, Dracula, the 79 version that you expressed a preference for, and the rather poor Flash Gordon
Yeah.
being a De Laurentiis. That's quite a career, right? I mean, most people would say you did Star Wars, you could probably retire
Yeah.
after that.
Yeah.
But yeah, Star Wars was a big breakthrough. And when I was thinking about it for the show, I watched the despecialized version, and we can talk about that whole problem with Lucas
Yeah.
changing the film over time. But the despecialized version is a sort of an amateur version that's been done where the guy, I think he goes by the name
Hammy.
Harmy,
Yeah. Something like that. Yeah.
and he's not for profit, just for preservation of the original film. He's pieced together from different VHS versions, laser
discs. Yeah.
He's pieced together the original version of Star Wars from 1977 without all the additions and without all the edits and things. And it's, for me, it was a great breakthrough, because all these years since I saw the movie in the theater, it's always been disappointing to see the changes that he's made.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, we can talk about that more
Yeah.
later, but sitting down to watch it this time, what struck me is what a really well-made film it is.
Oh yeah. Well, I got questions about that too. So
it's just loaded with stuff.
yeah.
Most science fiction movies prior to that point, if they pulled off one good effect, if they had one decent-looking alien or one decent-looking robot, you would go, "Oh, wow,
Yeah.
the fucking film is just brimming with stuff." I made a list of all the little things that I guess you could call amusing but unnecessary. The little things that were put in there that really make the film, in a way, creates that sense that you're in a real world, but really weren't necessary. The sort of things that probably the studio people were saying, you don't need to do
You don't
that.
need that. Yeah. How much did that cost?
It's not like the same phenomenon that Ridley Scott had with Alien, where they were
Yeah.
saying you don't really need this, it's too much. But like, for instance, the animated chess pieces. And when Chewbacca and C-3PO are sitting inside the Millennium Falcon and they're playing chess, and they have these little stop motion animated creatures, each one a different design. And I stop and think about the effort and the time and the money that went into doing something that's just blink and you miss it. But those are the things that won over guys in the audience like me, because I was a big Ray Harryhausen fan by that time, the first time I saw Star Wars. And the idea that they would go to that level of that trouble and that level of attention to detail was extraordinary to me.
Yeah, not only doing stop motion animation, filming them separately, and then putting them on the film as holograms.
Right. Even the idea itself.
Yeah.
The idea that Lucas was savvy enough to know about this type of material, to know that if you're going to do something like a chess set, it has to be made fantastic in some way. It has to be like an eyeball kick.
Yeah.
It can't just be like traditional chess pieces that they're moving around. But the head of the garbage disposal creature, that's a very fun sequence when they fall into the garbage disposal, and some sort of creature is floating around under the water, and it grabs Luke and pulls him down. But before it does that, its head pops up and it looks around. And that's, again, it's completely unnecessary. They didn't need to do it, but they added that, and that just makes the whole thing so much more exciting and so much richer. This is the famous one, the creatures in the cantina.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I can't tell you what a reaction that scene got when that played. When folks saw that for the first time, it's just like, this is unbelievable. Because usually, like I say, if you got one monster like that in a movie, it was an amazing thing. There's so many you can't even count them. Now it turns out a lot of those were just like Halloween masks and things like that. But still, to have all of that in one place, and to have that level of detail to the scene, that amount of color in the scene, is really remarkable, and it helps make the film, what it is. I think the legs of the alien that pass by the camera in one shot. It's when I guess the spy is ratting out Han and Obi-Wan and Luke, and there's an outside shot of the building that the Millennium Falcon is in, and there are people passing by, and then you see like the shadow of two giant legs, some sort of creature walks in front. Again, not necessary, but it adds to the thing. All the robots in the sand crawler, when C-3PO finally is reunited with R2, and they're in that inside the sandcrawler, and you see all the other different types of robots. Not necessary. They didn't need to do that, but it just makes the thing, really exciting and wonderful to watch.
Yeah, it fills up the background, makes it organic.
Right? The dewbacks, the creatures those things that you see, the lizard-like creatures that they're riding, the stormtroopers are riding at some point. You see them parked outside the cantina. Again, for most productions, that would be the highlight of the movie. And here it is. It's just like a throwaway thing. The training orb, we talked about the training orb that Luke was using to learn how to light save. And the land speeder. Not just the one, the whole idea of them adding to the list of special effects by having his land speeder float off the ground.
Yeah.
Think to yourself, most people, the first thing they would do when they're coming up with a budget is say, no, just put fucking wheels on it.
Yeah.
But they do the land speeder, and not only that, but there's a scene fairly early on when R2-D2 has gone off on his own, and Luke comes back to his garage, I guess it's supposed to be, and C-3PO jumps up from behind.
Jumps up.
He says he must have gone mad or something, and then they go out looking for R2. But the thing he's hiding behind is like a sports car version of a land speeder.
Yeah.
It's never seen again in the movie. The fact that they would do that is just extraordinary to me, to put that much effort into it. Most productions, even if they wanted to have a land speeder in that shot, they would just use the land speeder.
The same one, yeah.
Right? So all the little things like that, it's just sort of like an endless list when you start looking at it, all the details that really make this so rich. And it's one of the reasons I think why Ridley Scott, we talked about Alien recently, Ridley Scott had cited Star Wars as something that sort of was influential on him when he was doing Alien.
Yeah, having just watched Alien for last episode and then watching this, a lot of the corridors when they're like going to the prison cell, like when they're going to Princess Leia's cell, that reminded me of Alien a little bit.
Yeah. Well,
not as gross and wet, but just the tightness of it and the way it was shaped and was all black. It was
Yeah, there's definitely some similarities in the sets, but that the overall the attention to detail and the insistence on getting as much detail into every shot as possible, that's something that you can definitely see Ridley Scott doing in Alien, and it's something that he's doing here. Also, it's a very well-edited film. They won the Oscar that year. It was the three people that won the Oscar: Marshall Lucas and Chu, and anyway, they won the Oscar for Best Editing. And that's the thing I always forget. When I go for a period of time without watching this movie, I always forget how fast-paced it is, how precise it is, with the editing.
Yeah, when I was watching today, I was like, because I watched the despecialized. I was like, man, it's just moving along, because if you've never seen the special editions that he fixed, he adds all these scenes of like the land speeder, like going by 5 times, and every ship has to pass by 5. And I'm like, it slows it down.
Yeah.
But then I was watching a documentary that you told me about the
Lost version.
The
original edit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can kind of see where his special edition came from. He's trying to put back all this stuff that he originally cut out. And I'm sitting there thinking, do we owe, is Brian De Palma, do we give him credit for the fixing of this movie because of how bad it was?
Well, a lot of people, I have seen videos online where the folks say he's the guy that saved Star Wars.
Yeah.
I don't think I can go that far. I mean, every director, I assume, knows that you have a 3-hour cut of the film.
Right.
That's going to have to be chopped down, and presumably he went to people like Spielberg and Brian De Palma to get their advice on what needed to go. And he certainly got good advice, because many of the changes. But these folks that he brought in for the sort of second edit of the film, they are the folks that really seem to have honed the thing down so that the shots are so quick. It doesn't feel disorienting at all. It just feels full of energy, And it also gives the feeling that the storyteller knows where he's going with this. There's nothing extraneous. It's not like he's not sure, when you're watching it, you're not sure what these details, how they relate to the story. Now, you always know exactly where you are. And I love the way he sort of can get rid of certain characters when they would be in the way, and then brings them back in. Like the whole scene inside the Death Star, the way that C-3PO and R2 are in a different place, so we don't have to have them clanking behind.
Right, yeah.
And there's a lot of little touches like that, where, like for instance, early in the film when Luke has first gotten the R2D2, he tells C-3PO in his little jibber jabber, he tells him that if they want to see the whole message, they should take the restraining bolt off because it's short-circuiting his system. Well, actually, it's a trick, right?
Yeah.
Because he wants the restraining bolt taken off so he can take off in the next thing. That's they're laying the next step of the story. They're putting in the little things that will take you on in the next scene and will explain where you're going in the next scene. And that really shows a lot of, smarts and craftsmanship in the storytelling. I have to say, I don't really understand where all that went with the second film.
Yeah, I know.
And with all the films that he's done since, I have a feeling that what it is with George Lucas is that for Star Wars and for Raiders of the Lost Ark, he had this big pile of ideas.
Oh, yeah.
And he put them all into those one movie.
One movie, yeah.
And when the time came to do Empire Strikes Back, he still had a few remaining good ideas, like Yoda and the Imperial Walkers and things like that. And maybe if you want to really give him the benefit of the doubt, you could say even in Return of the Jedi, there's a few interesting original ideas that he can get in there. But Star Wars is filled with ideas, the first film.
Yeah.
And then as the films go along, they get slower, they get more ponderous, and they don't have as many of those really great crackerjack ideas that he had in Star Wars.
Yeah, when I watched it today, I was like, man, I would love to watch this again without the knowledge of who Darth Vader really is and all that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's a more fun movie when you're not bogged down with, oh, he's Luke's father and he used to be, he used to be Anakin and and all that. I was just like, I would love to watch it for the first time again.
Yeah, well, I remember that experience, and I remember how exhilarating it was. And even at the time, I remember thinking as I was leaving the theater, how are they ever going to do a sequel to this? How are they ever going to beat this? And I figured that what they would do would be what the James Bond films did, which was just to repeat the same story. Yeah. But I think that probably what happened was Lucas was surprised that people took this so seriously. I think he meant it to be fun. He meant it to be sort of an homage to the matinee serials, Flash Gordon and Buck Rogers and that sort of thing. And when it came out, it was such a sensation. There were like news stories of people talking about their autistic children that had never spoken before until they saw Star Wars. And now they're talking a mile a minute, and parents would be sort of pushing their children at the shopping mall to be able to touch the cloak of Darth Vader as he passed by. And Lucas must have thought, well, if it's going to get that sort of reaction, if people are going to take it that seriously, if they're going to be talking about the Force and things like this, as if they are really fully thought out philosophies, then he has to make it, the second film deeper, more profound. And of course, he ended up hanging out with that Joseph Campbell guy, the Power of Myth guy.
Yeah.
And a lot of his ideas are interesting. If you're interested in mythology, it's interesting to see his thoughts on the different types of myths and the fact that so many things that turn up in myths seem to be universal. They turn up in mythology in all sorts of cultures. And it probably, if you want to stretch a point, you could say that most of the more successful Hollywood films are working those myths. They integrate elements of that mythology in their stories, but usually it's done, I won't say unintentionally, but unconsciously. That stuff is just part of our culture.
Yeah.
So we naturally, and this is the beauty of the first film, we just immediately accept it because we're so familiar with these tropes, with these ideas. We don't have to think about whether or not a young guy from the farm looking for adventure in the big city would want to rescue a beautiful woman? He said, of course he would,
Yeah.
naturally. And so you don't have to worry about character motivation. It just sort of falls into place. But I believe that the simple message in the first film is really, to me, far more profound than any of the stuff that's in the subsequent films. Because the first film, to me, is about trust yourself,
Yep.
right? When Obi-Wan is saying, use the Force, Luke, he's not saying use the Force. He's saying, turn off the fucking computer and use your own intuition. You're pure of heart, you have integrity, and you have enthusiasm, and you don't need the computer. In a way, it's similar to the message of 2001, right? Because that's the height of action in 2001 is when they finally turned the damn computer off. So that message and the idea that the Force is not something supernatural, it isn't really a religion or an actual force. It's the force that's in all of us, that enthusiasm, optimism, and a desire to do the right thing. That's the religion, right? And as long as you trust yourself, then everything will work out fine. Well, that seems like a pretty good message, particularly for something that really is just meant to be entertainment, right? There's nothing harmful in that message, certainly. And it's something that everybody can pretty much agree with, right? There's not very many people who say, oh, no, you shouldn't trust yourself.
Yeah.
But the subsequent stuff, it gets very murky and unclear, and it starts to become, the Force, the Jedis, start to become like an actual cult or a religion. And that doesn't appeal to me at all. And Luke goes from being this sort of innocent, wide-eyed kid to being a fucking priest in Return of the Jedi. He even got the Roman collar.
Yeah.
That's not the direction I would have taken it in, But
every time I think back about the first movie, I'm like, the Luke character has this really great character arc, right? From when we first meet him to where he ends up. But then there's that one scene in the middle after his uncle and aunt are killed, where he immediately just, okay, I'm ready, I'm go, because just before that he was, I can't go, I've got to do farm work. They're dead. Now he's like, all right, I'm ready to go. I'm gonna go be. Does that feel forced to you whenever?
Well, it did. Their deaths did remove the major impediment for him joining the adventure. I mean, he was essentially saying, when Obi-Wan is telling him, "You must learn the Force," he's saying, "I can't do it. Uncle, whatever his name is, it's not Uncle Ben.
No.
I forget the guy's name.
Uncle Owen.
Uncle Owen, is that it?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take your word for it. I should know by now.
Yeah, I know.
But his main thing seems to be, I have obligations here. I have obligations to these people, right? So he can't go off on an adventure. So I suppose, assuming that he's not just motivated by revenge to get the people that killed his aunt and uncle,
right?
It's simply the only direction he can go in, right? What else would he do?
I know, but I don't know. Maybe it's the way it's filmed. I don't know. It's just I can't do it, and then all of a sudden it's like, yes, I want to go be a Jedi like my father. I'm like, oh, that was quick. It just always seems weird to me for some reason.
Well, I think you probably would agree, though, that shot of the burning corpses, the burning skeletons, that's pretty powerful.
Oh yeah.
So there's emotion there, and I guess we could say maybe the story is a little too expeditious in that instance, but there is still, conceivably, if you ponder it, there is some good reason for him to want to go off. I don't know if I would want to go off and become a Jedi Master, but I would certainly want to go off and fight the Empire.
Right.
So, but that's the other aspect of it, is an entertainment, and the idea is to sort of move the story along. So you could say a couple of times, and I have heard people say this, that they don't really sweat over the dead bodies that they're leaving behind too much, right? I mean, he's pretty much fully recovered by the time they go looking for
by the time we get them all sizely, he's pretty much over it, yeah.
And when the planet that's blown up by the Death Star, when they discover that planet has been destroyed, there's not much thought given to it by anybody, as far as I can see. But then on the other hand, how much can you do, right?
Yeah.
The reason perhaps why the movies that followed were less entertaining, in my opinion, is because they did feel a need to go into all
To
that sort of
dwell and
things.
stuff, yeah.
Right? And I don't think that's the mission of a movie like this. I think the idea is move it along.
Move, fun. Yep.
And when you stop and think about it, there are a lot of surprisingly moving moments in the film. I know I've heard a lot of people over the years talk about how they remember that scene of Luke staring at the two suns with that music playing.
Oh yeah.
That touches people. The spirit of adventure, the desire to get away from the domestic life that's holding you back, right?
John Williams score.
Always an important factor, right? His music makes everything work, I guess, for this and for Superman and for a lot of the other movies that we've been speaking about. When Leah gives him a kiss before they jump over that whatever that is.
Yeah.
That always gets a reaction. That anytime I've seen it with an audience, that always gets a reaction. And it is kind of it's an emotional moment. I won't say it's moving necessarily, but anything that makes you smile,
Right, yeah.
that is a kind of movement. When he turns off the targeting computer, as we were just talking about, this is kind of hard not to feel, a little bit of a lump when you see somebody facing that sort of situation and they're willing to put the targeting computer aside and just trust themselves to be able to do it. And when it actually works, that's even more emotional. When Han Solo returns, that's an emotional scene.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. When I saw it with the first time I saw it with that audience, they went nuts when that happened, and that's another example of how they can, he was able to sort of plant the seed for something that pays off later, right? Have Han be a dick, and then he redeems himself at the last moment. Another example of planting the seed is having that moment where R2-D2 is hit by the shot, I guess, from Darth Vader's. They do that not only because they want to have that little joke where C-3PO says that he wants to donate his gears and circuits, but also when they're all receiving their award, when R2-D2 comes walking out to the stage, the audience loves that. That's, I guess, the equivalent of like the cat in Alien.
Yeah, don't kill the cat. Yeah.
You want to feel that the director or the filmmaker is paying attention to these little characters, these little side characters that the audience has affection for. I mean, I remember when I saw the film the first time, that scene where C-3PO gets thrown back when the sand people jump up and attack Luke, and him and Obi-Wan find, first they find the arm.
The arm, yeah.
And when the audience saw the arm, they thought, oh, you could hear that in the audience. Like, oh, poor C-3PO. They didn't even know who he was at that point. I mean, it's just, so all those little touches, and of course the final award ceremony. A lot of people have talked about how that's similar to the Nazi propaganda film, Triumph of the Will. But I don't really think that I mean, he may have been visually influenced to some extent, but the truth of the matter is that's sort of a curtain call for the characters.
Yeah.
Getting an award at the end is, it can't help but be touched by that, and it just leaves all the audience members leaving the theater with a smile on their face because they feel they've seen something that is positive and lighthearted and fun.
And then they go home and wonder why Chewbacca didn't get a medal.
Is he still grousing about that?
Probably.
I thought didn't he get a medal in one of the more recent Star Wars movies? Here's your fucking medal.
Yeah.
But,
and I definitely want to talk about sound design.
Yes.
What's his name? Ben Bird, is that his name?
Ben Burt, yes. Yeah.
I mean, the stuff he came up with, for the lightsabers, for the ships and the laser blasts,
and all the creatures and the robots.
All the creatures, yeah.
No, that's another example of how that sort of detailing, putting more layers and layers of extra stuff that you really didn't need, right?
Right, yeah.
Most people wouldn't have bothered. They did bother, and the result is something that, I think it's still probably one of the highest grossing films of all time. It's certainly in the top 5, adjusted for inflation. So that's the reaction of the audience, for once, all over the world, really, is entirely justified, because it's it's a wonderful film and a wonderful piece of filmmaking. But what else? How can we criticize
it? I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, other than what I've already said about Luke's little, turn of attitude real quick, I really can't think of anything else bad about this movie, to be honest with you.
Well, I remember the first time I saw it, I have to admit that there was a twinge of concern when I first saw R2 and C-3PO.
Right.
Because I thought, oh my Christ, the comical robots again. And then when C-3PO starts talking like Dr. Smith, I thought, well, this is not a good sign. But fortunately, they realized that comic relief is fine, but you don't spend all your time with them.
Yeah.
There are other people, other characters that give the story the gravity that it needs to make it interesting and make it emotionally involving. But that probably is a curse that Lucas has faced a few times in the years since. He just makes it a little too silly, a little too childish.
Yeah.
Jogging.
And where can everybody find your specialized versions of your movies?
Well, Demon Resurrection is still on Tubi TV and still on Amazon Prime as a pay-per-view title. And it's on a few other streaming platforms, Zumo TV. And Sleepless Nights, which is my sort of George Lucas version of my first film. It's a vampire movie, a low-budget movie I made about almost 25 years ago now. I've been working to fix that up, re-edit it, up-res it to high def. And I think I'm going to have some good news about it being available online probably in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, good.
Maybe even sooner. I mean, unfortunately, when you distribute to companies like Film Hub, which you may have heard of, Film Hub is this company that basically takes your film and it distributes it to all the streaming platforms. But the streaming platforms decide whether they're going to take it.
Take it or not, yeah.
They decide how long they're going to hold on to it before they finally start showing it. So I don't know when it's going to finally pop up on any of the big streaming platforms, but apparently it's been selected by a couple of them. So it may just be a few days or a few weeks before we see it.
All right, I'm looking forward to it.
And you're all over the web. I see you got TikTok and what else?
Yeah, TikTok. I got the audio version of the show, which we have now moved over to Anchor, which you can still find us everywhere else, but if everybody could listen to us on Spotify, that would really help out.
That's where you're making the big money.
That's where we're making the money at, yeah. Need everybody to go to there. And of course, you can, if you go to our Anchor page, you can leave us a voicemail on there. So if you have, if you want to complain about us, not liking the specialized version, you can go in there and do that.
That's right. Invite controversy. That's the way to.
That's what we need.
You're looking for interaction with our audience. And you just did another episode recently with Billy and Aaron.
Billy and Aaron came back. Yeah, a little Shallow Grave.
Yes, good to hear the old gang back together. And I guess that Wendy cigarette action figure will probably be selling like hotcakes now.
Yeah, as soon as I find one, I'm going to get one.
It's a brilliant idea. I'm sorry I missed it.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. All I got is my Grand Moff Tarkin with guns that he didn't even have in the movie.
Yeah. But yeah, you can find us on Facebook, and I guess you're still on the social media.
Still on Facebook under my name, and there's also Facebook pages for Demon Resurrection and Sleepless Nights, and there's also Twitter accounts for me and Demon Resurrection and Sleepless Nights. So if you do a Google search under William Hopkins or Demon Resurrection or Sleepless Nights Revamped, which is the new title, then you probably find me somewhere.
All right. Well, this was a good episode, and until next week, we will continue to watch the good, the bad, and the cheaply made.
Take care.
Yep.